Okay, welcome, my friends. It's lovely to be here with you and to learn together. Again, those that are here in person, it's always very special to be in person and to have the energy of connectivity within the space and to have you online and to connect to your energy online. We're going to engage with a very unique question, and that's the question of who is Mashiach? What is Mashiach? The other day, I was walking in the promenade, sorry, not the promenade, in the V&A waterfront. And I see my father-in-law, he's speaking to an individual there, clearly not a Jewish individual. And, they're having quite an engaged conversation. So I thought, let me see what's going on. Seems interesting. So I come there, and the conversation is about why the Jewish people haven't accepted the tutelage or the Mashiach component of a certain individual. And that was what the conversation was about. And my father-in-law was able to extricate himself from the conversation. I continued with ignorance and hopeful glee, but the end came quite soon, and I thought, there's no chance of any conversation around this. But I remember the conversation concluded with the following words. He said to me, the individual, what warning do you want to give me? So I said to him, I don't have any warning for you. There's no warning, no warning. His name was Paul. I said to him, Paul, there's no warning for you, brother. I love you. You must do what you feel. I've given you some insights, no warnings. But he gave me a warning. He said that if I don't believe in his Mashiach, I am going to hell. So that was his kind warning. I thanked him for his very kind words and proceeded to go on my way. But what I want to discuss with you is, who is Mashiach? What is this concept of Mashiach? How does the energy of Mashiach work? Is this some fanciful wizard energy that comes into the world and will save everyone from their pangs of pain and depression? What's going on here? So we're going to evaluate a few archetypal sources that come from the Gemara and other teachers and try to understand what these sources are telling us. I am intentionally going to glance over them together with you. So I'm going to intentionally go together with you through these sources. We're not going to unpack them initially. These are going to plant seeds for us to be able to hopefully germinate and sprout during the shiur together. So let's have a look. The first source is the Gemara in Brachos. And the Gemara tells us about an argument that transpires between a few rabbis. And one of the statements that is brought in the Gemara is the statement of Shmuel. And Shmuel says the following statement about Mashiach. We think about what is the grandeur of our experience of Mashiach, the Messiah. We think about unbelievable miracles. We think about a transformation of humanity. We think about people maybe flying in the air. I don't know what you're thinking about. But the Gemara tells us, and I'm sorry to, be anticlimactic here potentially for you, but the Gemara tells us, Ein bein ha'olam hazeh li'yemoisa Mashiach ele shibud malchiyos bilvad. The only difference between this world, i.e. our current lived experience of the world, and the times of Mashiach, the only difference is something called Shibud Malchus. Shibud Malchus literally means servitude. Shibud means to be in servitude to the Malchus, which is to the kingship. So what it sounds like, maybe, is when Mashiach comes, we stop paying taxes. Maybe that's the outcome. No more taxes are paid when Mashiach comes. I see some very gleeful and happy individuals. No taxes, unbelievable when Mashiach comes. Is that what Mashiach is about? Is that what Mashiach is about? But that's what the Gemara says. When Mashiach comes, there is going to be a scenario where there's no more shibud to the malchus, no more servitude to the kingdoms. Okay, no more servitude to the kingdoms. That's the first source. Let's have a look at the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov in the second source tells us when Jacob called all of his sons and he said to them, I'm going to gather you in so I can tell you what's going to happen at the end of times. He says the following to them. What does it mean? So it says that Jacob calls his sons. Listen to the terminology. It is fundamental what the Baal Shem Tov is trying to teach us in these first few sentences. He says, and Jacob called out to his kids, and when he calls out to them, he uses the terminology yikre. What does yikre mean? To call out, calling out. But he says that the terminology yikre also comes from the word mikre. Mikre means almost like a surprise, almost like something happens out of the norm. And he says, Mashiach will come when everyone is busy doing their work and not thinking about Mashiach at all. Suddenly Mashiach will come. What? What does that mean? We're taught in Judaism, you have to long for Mashiach to come. You have to pray for Mashiach to come. Now you're telling me Mashiach will come when you sort of, stop thinking about it. It's like trying to fall asleep. When you can't fall asleep and you're thinking about falling asleep, that's when you don't fall asleep. But when you actually stop thinking about falling asleep, then you end up falling asleep. Is that the same with Mashiach? What's happening here? Okay, so you've got one strange Gemara telling us that we're not paying taxes anymore when Mashiach comes. We have another Gemara telling us that stop thinking about Mashiach and the Mashiach will come. Now let's have a look at this next Gemara. It's a very, very indicative, very powerful Gemara. Very, very, very eye-opening experience. Let's have a look at this third source. I'm going to read it to you in English just so we have immediate access for those who don't understand Hebrew. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said to Eliyahu, when will Mashiach come? Yeah, important question. Many people are asking that question now. When will Mashiach come? Well, when will the Messiah come? And he says to him, go and ask him. What do you mean, go and ask him? I should go and ask Mashiach. Where's Mashiach? How do I find Mashiach? So like you can look up the Mashiach, you probably can actually. You could probably go and do a Google search. Who is the Mashiach? You'll find a number of addresses of individuals stating that they are Mashiach. You probably could do such a thing. But back then, I'm not sure that existed. So he asks him, where do I find this Mashiach? So he says to him, he's sitting at the entrance of the city of Rome. Okay. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asks Elijah, the prophet Eliyahu, all right, that's cool, but there's a lot of people sitting at the entrance of Rome. You drive down into town, you see the people sitting on the corner there. You tell me that's Mashiach? I mean, which one of them is Mashiach? Who's the Mashiach? So listen to what he says. This is the identifying sign of Mashiach. Are you ready? He says the identifying sign is the following. How can I recognize him? So he says he is sitting amongst the poor who suffer from illness. He's sitting amongst the poor who are suffering from illness. And all of them untie their bandages and tie them all at once. Okay, so they have bandages, maybe they have leprosy or some type of wounds, and they all untie their bandages. But the telltale sign that this individual is Mashiach is that he unties one bandage at a time, saying, perhaps I will be needed. So if he's got all his bandages untied, perhaps he might be needed. And now he's going to take time to put his bandages on. So Mashiach, you'll see, is indicated by an individual who's sitting at the entrance of Rome, out of all of the places that he could be sitting, together with those who are ill, and he's untying a bandage one at a time, as opposed to everyone else that have untied all of their bandages, cleaned their wounds, and then they put them all on. But listen to what happens now. The Gemara continues in the next source. So it says, Az legabe. So he goes there. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi goes to greet Mashiach. He's got the key. I can't wait to meet Mashiach. Imagine you could meet Mashiach. Amale. So what do you say to Mashiach? What would you say to Mashiach? Jesse, what would you say to Mashiach when you see Mashiach? How's it? How's it, bro? Yeah. What's up? So he says to him, Shalom Alecha Rabbi Umayri. He says to him, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi and teacher. So he says back to him, Amar Shalom Alecha Bar Levi. He says to him, greetings to you, Bar Levi. Now listen to what he continues to say. Again, everything that we've just read and will continue to read are all codes. What we're going to try and do again, as I've specified, we're just putting these codes out. We're going to need to return, and we're going to need to unpack these codes together. But allow these codes to germinate, plant them, and let's see what is going to sprout out. He says to them, when are you going to come? Let's go. We've been waiting. Imagine the Roman population now have obviously taken over Israel. The Jewish people are living under duress. So now we need to be saved. Amar le hayom. So what does he say to him? Today. I will come today. Asa legabe Eliyahu amar le may amar lach. So he says to him, comes a bit of time that has passed after Mashiach told him is coming today. And a few days have gone by. And this individual encounters Eliyahu the prophet again, who told him where to find Mashiach. And he says to him, listen to what he says to him. He says, greetings. Eliyahu says to Bar Levi, greetings. And he says to him, listen to the final part of this. Yeshua ben Levi speaking to Elijah. And Elijah says to him, so what did Mashiach say? When is he coming? And who remembers what Mashiach said? Today, coming today. But he didn't come. So he says, Mashiach's a liar. He's lying. He lied to me. Told me I'm coming. He doesn't come, doesn't pitch. So Elijah says back to him, Amalach, Hayoim. Today, in Bekoilo Tishmo, if you listen to his voice. Today, if you listen to his voice. Okay. Let's see one final piece of this puzzle. Again, a very, very, very strange Gemara that tells us some unique pieces of information. And then let's start to piece these pieces of information together to understand on a deeper level what we are talking about. The final source I want to show you in these pieces is, what is Mashiach's name? Yeah, it's a pretty important question. Imagine we found out Mashiach's name. Unbelievable if we understood his name, knew his name. So listen to what the Gemara tells us. Ma Shemoi. The Gemara says, what's his name? Debei Rabbi Sheila Amar Shiloi Shemoi. Rabbi Sheila says his name is Shiloi. Okay, you want to understand, someone asks you, Lara, what is Mashiach's name? Well, what would you say the first opinion? Shiloi. His name's Shiloi. All right. Shneimar ad ki yavo Shiloi. Debei Rabbi Yanai. Yeah, Rabbi Yanai comes along. Amrei Yinoin Shemoi. Jesse, what's his name? Yinon. What an interesting name. Have you met ever an individual by the name of Yinon? Yinon? You have. Where? Okay, interesting. Yinon. So you have Shiloi, we have Yinon. Shnema Yishmoi lo elam lifnei shemesh, Yinon. Shemoi. Tebei Rabbi Chanina. The house of Rabbi Chanina, they have a different opinion on what his name is. So can you imagine this argument? Can you imagine people arguing about the name of Mashiach? One is saying Shiloi, one is saying Yinun, another one says Hanina. It's a nice name. Chanina. Amrei Chanina Shemay. And it seems like everyone's got a bias here because the houses of their name, so you have the house of Sheila, they say it's Shiloi. You have the house of Yinoim or Yanai, they say it's Yinon. You have the house of Chanina, what do they say his name is? Chanina, a bit of a bias, eh? It's like, what did Elon Musk, oh, no, he didn't, he named him X, yes, it's after something, but here they're naming it after the house that they belong to. They want to name Mashiach after this house. And then to conclude here, just for a controversy and a little bit of spice, just to not let anyone feel left out, we see here in the final part of this that if you are hoping for any particular individual to be Mashiach, Menachem. Menachem is his name. Menachem. Ben Cheskia Shemosh Ne'emar Ki Rachak Memeni Menachem. Unbelievable. So we have a number of names here. We have Sheila, we have Yinoin, we have Chanina, and we have Menachem. Wow. So if we were to sum up all of these pieces of information, if you were an agent, an FBI agent, or some detective, and you wanted to know about Mashiach, this is the pieces of information you would have about Mashiach. Now, when Mashiach comes, it seems that the only change will be something called the servitude to the kingship, that we've sort of translated as not paying taxes. The second thing that we found out is that you need to be somewhat haphazard, not thinking about anything, busy with your work, and then Mashiach shows up. We see as well that he loves to sit at the entrance of Rome together with the sick, and he unties his bandages one at a time, you know? And he says he's coming today, but he never pitches. So he's not very good at making arrangements. You know, he's not a very dependable individual. And we also found out a few names. It's got a few names to choose from. We don't know which one it is, but a few names we can choose from. Okay, right. Interesting. Very good. What do we do with this? What do we do with these pieces of information? What am I meant to take away from this space? So now I want to share with you a few very deep sources that are going to be transformative. Each of them is going to give us a piece that will allow us to unpack what we have started off with. Let's see if we can take a few of these elements and see what is brought here. So I'm going to read to you the next source. This is a source from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov tells us, he says like this, Shamati memoiri ki inyan galus mitzrayim haya shechasem hemadas. He says, you know what the main space of exile in Egypt was? Do you want to know what the main place of constriction that a person experiences in their life is? You want to know what that is? The main constriction that a person feels in their life, and this is what the shibud was. This is what the space of difficulty was in Egypt. Baal Shem Tov says that they lacked something called das. They lacked das. What's das? Knowledge. What? Consciousness. Knowledge, consciousness. The ability to understand that there is one entity that has formed everything is what it means to have das, consciousness. What does it mean to be conscious? When a person says, I want to tap into consciousness, what does that mean? What does that look like? So what the Baal Shem Tov explains to us, what it means is that you know that there is only one creator, one entity. Hamachadesh b'tuvay tamid ma'aseh b'reishis, that is constantly recreating every moment. Right now, we're experiencing a recreation of creation. Right now in our lives, right now. So now listen to this. This is according to Kabbalah. We have two types of consciousness. We have a consciousness that is referred to as the feminine consciousness. And it says that when we left Egypt, the feminine consciousness was revealed. Achdas the duchra is galil ased b'yemais Mashiach. But the masculine consciousness, again, remember, all of us as human beings, if you're a female or a male, has these two components, which we have to understand. What's the masculine consciousness? What is the feminine consciousness? But when Mashiach will come, what will be revealed is the masculine consciousness. What does that mean? That it means, what does it mean? It means that when you will learn Torah and when you will pray, you will see the words in front of your eyes. What does that mean? This is going to be referred to in the Pesach Haggadah, which we're going to read very soon. I'm sorry to give you a little bit of anxiety. Understand this. This is so fundamental. What does it mean to have feminine consciousness? Feminine consciousness means that you're able to see that there's one creator when it's daylight, when there's clarity in your life, when things make sense. What does it mean when Mashiach comes and you reveal the masculine consciousness? Is that you will be able to see even within the evening. You will still be able to see that Hashem is the one creator within the evening. What the evening represents is confusion, is darkness. And what happens in a person's life is there are so many times that a person feels overwhelmed with darkness and they lose consciousness. They lose belief. They lose a sense of connectivity. Now, what he says here and what we're gathering from this source is something very powerful. What is Mashiach? And what comes out from Mashiach? Is it world peace? Is it that we don't have to work anymore? Is it that animals don't bite? What do you say we're seeing here transpiring from Mashiach? What is happening here from this source? We see that there is a fundamental shift in consciousness. What Mashiach is a shift in our ability to see within our perspective of life. That is what Mashiach is. And I'm going to show you a number of sources which will tie back into that most people think that Mashiach is a human being. That there's this entity that comes and is some wizard force that is going to transform our reality and we're going to bow down at his feet and kiss the king. And you better believe in my king, because if you don't believe in my king, you're going to hell. And you'll say, I better believe in your king. And if I don't believe in your king, you're going to hell. And there's this tit for tat of which guy we need to believe in is Mashiach. And then the women will come involved and say, it's not fair that Mashiach is a man, Mashiach is a woman. I'm sure that exists now, no? And then the next one will say it's not neither a woman or a man. They don't identify as either, whatever the identity of Mashiach is. But what we're seeing here, and I want to make it clear, of course, Mashiach, there's an entity or a human being or an aspect of humanity that will come through. But what we have to understand is we are not dealing with some magical human that will come and transform our lives. What we're seeing here is that Mashiach is a shift in consciousness. It is a shift in our understanding, our perception of the world. And one of the gleaming elements that we've just seen here is the ability to see within the dark. You know, in the army, they have night vision. This first source that we've seen is Mashiach gives you night vision. Okay? That's what we see. First principle of Mashiach is night vision. What does that look like? What does that mean? How do we discover night vision? Let's see a little bit more. Now, comes along the Likutei Halachas. And the Likutei Halachas tells us the following very, very powerful and transformative insight. He says like this, what is the night vision? The night vision, and listen to this powerful understanding, is going to be a key factor that's going to allow us to reintegrate this information into answering the first fundamental symbols and puzzles that we had. V'zeu, he says, Soymech Hashem l'kol hanoiflim. He says Hashem comes along to support all those who have fallen. Shem noiflim avodas Hashem, Hashem yisbarach soymcham u'ma'oirara meshei nosam alidei tzedekei ador. Understand this. He says, all of us fall, God forbid, in life. All of us have moments where we fall. And falling is not a physical falling. Falling is a spiritual falling. And what does it mean to fall in spirituality? Is that you lose your awareness of the oneness. You feel a sense of disconnection. You feel flurried. You feel haphazard. You feel unclear. Shem bechinas David, Mashiach shezach la'afich, men bechinas nevel, bechinas chaim aruchim. Listen to this. And what happens is the tzaddik ador, which means the righteous of the nation or the righteous of that time. What he refers to is David Mashiach, King David the Mashiach, is able to transform from falling to extended life experience, to extending or allowing one to feel that their life has been fulfilled, that their life feels full, that their life feels like there's space. What an understanding. That the opposite of Mashiach is the experience of feeling despondent, feeling like you've fallen, feeling like you can't get back up. And the consciousness of Mashiach gives you the experience of breath and breath. And what we see is Mashiach gives us the energy, fundamental concept. If you want to understand what Mashiach is, he says, it's the ability to start to live again in every single moment. Lahaskil, lichiyos, to start to live, as if you were just born. Right now. Do you understand that Hashem has recreated you right now and that your experience of life is as if you were just born right now? Can you imagine what consciousness that would create in your life if you realized, wow, I was just born now? Unbelievable. What opportunity. And I'm born now with the foresight and the ability and the knowledge that I already have embedded in me to continue with my life. Experience this moment again and again and again and again. Zel bechinas tefillin. And he says this is the energy of tefillin. Oh, what does this have to do with tefillin? But what we're seeing from this source is another thing. The previous source told us that Mashiach gives us night vision. The second source has given us the idea that Mashiach gives us a consciousness that we are being born every single moment. From a state of feeling fallen to a state of feeling that your life is expansive, that the experience that of you have space. Let's look at one more source and then let's tie it all together. This is a source from the Keter Shem Tov. This Keter Shem Tov shares with us an unbelievably powerful insight. And if you recall, we started off by saying, who remembers the first source that we read? What was the first puzzle of the piece? Or the first piece of the puzzle? Yes, I think that's the way it's said. What was the first piece of the puzzle here? We said in the Gemara in Brachas, what is the difference of now and when Mashiach comes? Who remembers? The difference is there's no more servitude to the Malchus. No more servitude to the kingdom. Yes, Pauline, tell us. Oh, I know you didn't. That's me. Sorry, I put my hand up for some reason. What does it mean to not have servitude to the kingdom? So listen to what the Keter Shem Tov says. From the Baal Shem Tov, he brings the Gemara in the Talmud that it says, Lo yigal Yisrael ad shekafru b'Hashem u'b'David. Birashas ein bein olam hazeh l'mois Mashiach ele shibud malchus b'lvad. What does this mean? That the only difference is this. So comes along, we're going to look at the final part of this. And it says like this, that a person in their life suffers. He goes on to tell us that in our lives, we all have a state of conflict and suffering. And he says that our suffering is so minute that even if you have a coin in your pocket, I know we don't use coins today, but even if you're looking for a 2 Rand coin and you pull out a 1 Rand coin, he says that's already a state of affliction. That's already a state of not feeling like I have accessed what I want. Now, if that's already an affliction, and what the Keter Shem Tov says, that's already an experience of something called Shibud Malchus. Because, according to Kabbalah, he explains, do you know what Malchus means? Malchus, if you look at the spheric table, we have 10 spheres. The lowest sphere is something called Malchus. Do you know what it means not to have Malchus? What is Malchus translated as? Anyone know? Kingdom. It's actually more appropriately translated as queenship. Queenship. But Malchus is the ability to have a kingdom. What does it mean to have a kingdom? So, if you recall our class that we spoke about the energy of Chain. What was the energy of Chain? We said the energy of Chain was the energy of connectivity. It was the energy of splendor, or feeling a sense of, wow, I feel so internally connected in my soul. And the ability to feel connection internally allowed you to feel noyach. Noyach was this experience of calm, experience of tranquility. And what we discovered with that class is that the ability to have calm stems from your ability to have connection. But we said that there were 2 fundamental letters that spelled Chain. What were those letters? The first one was a ches, and that ches represented something called Chaim or Chochma, which was the state of consciousness that we've discussed. And the Nun. What was the Nun? The Nun represented the lowest realm, which is the realm of Malchus, which is the realm of queenship. And what that queenship was, we said, was a vessel. That queenship was a vessel that is meant to hold the consciousness and bring it into our actuality, bring it into our space of experience of life. What did we say was the constriction to that vessel? Is that when we feel an emptiness, we don't just hold space and allow it to be filled with a deeper sense of oneness of this world. We quickly try and fill it up with all different things. We quickly start to look and say, gosh, I'm feeling so despondent. I'm feeling so empty. How do I fill my bucket? What the Keter Shem Tov brings us is the difference between now and our lives, our lived experience of now, and the time of Mashiach is Shibud Malchus. What Shibud Malchias means is servitude to the queenship. What does it mean to be a servant to the queen? It means that the bucket dictates what it wants inside of it rather than you dictate what you want to put into it. And how does that look when it experienced or is experienced in the state of suffering? Well, if something doesn't go your way, even when you put your hand into your pocket and you pull out the wrong coin, oi gewalt. Oi gewalt. My life is just not going the way I want it to be. Even a simple coin that I'm putting my hand in my pocket, I want the 2 rand, I get a 1 rand. What's wrong with that? Get over it. Why being so sensitive? What the Baal Shem Tov is saying is even the most simple dissonance of life is already a preclusion to the energy of Mashiach. Sure, it would fit into some serious stuff unless if you like the dark and makes you feel very relaxed. But load shedding definitely disrupts your state of serenity, doesn't it? So let's look at this final thing that the Baal Shem Tov brings, and then we're going to piece this together. He says, Va'amra HaTzadikim, this is the fundamental source here that transforms everything. HaKadoshim, Kimin Azman Iskalus, this is in the introduction to the Baal Shem Tov's teachings. Baal Shem Tov, HaKadosh Yisrael, in Snoitutzus HaMashiach, he started to talk about what it means to have a revelation of Mashiach. Va'inyan bevadahu emes la'amitoy al pimad de'isa b'sefer HaKadosh told us Yaakov, u'muv lekaman b'parshas lech lecha ki soid HaMashiach. Understand what Mashiach is. Who is the Messiah? The Messiah who soid hadas. The Messiah is the energy and the aspect of consciousness. What is consciousness at this point in time? It's night vision. What does it mean to have night vision? It means that you don't depend on day to be able to see. That's what it means to be conscious. You don't depend on everything going your way to be able to be connected. You are able to see through everything and you still see a sense of oneness. Because if you think about what the pain is that you're going to feel wholesome. Now, something doesn't go your way. So suddenly you start to feel very judgmental about it. You start to feel a little bit frazzled. You start to say, oh my gosh, I feel so uncertain about myself. The world's not playing to my song, to my game. That is what it means to be in exile. Now, most people spend their lives trying to make sure that everything fits into their lives, but no one has found that, and no one is ever able to discover that. What Mashiach comes to give us is not something that is only accessed in the future. What Mashiach gives us is something that is able to be accessed now. And if you want to bring Mashiach, yes, you can do mitzvahs, and yes, you can put on tefillin, and yes, you can learn Torah, but one of the most fundamental things to bring Mashiach is having something called Mashiach consciousness. Because what Mashiach is soid hadas. It's the essence of consciousness. The Rambam says this. This is not a Kabbalistic concept. The Rambam himself, he says, brings this. In Perek Tes Behilchos Tshuva, halacha base, in the 9th Perek, in the 2nd halacha. You know what he says? You know why we are longing for Mashiach? Not because you stop paying taxes, not because there's going to be world peace, not because you can just go and sit on the beach and go fish wherever you want. Not because there's going to be cheaper flights to Israel. Maybe there'll be more expensive flights to Israel. I don't know. What will happen, this is the Rambam, is there'll be a transformation of consciousness. Everyone will have night vision. And in your night vision, you will have a secret ability to recognize you're being born every second. And you will live life with radical amazement in every single second. Veha-emes is the 3rd principle the Rambam brings. You'll have das, deya, which is consciousness. You'll have chokhmah, which is wisdom, which is a very interesting and unique space of what it means to have consciousness. Das is the felt consciousness, which is interrelated with your emotions. Then Chokhmah is a higher state, which is a cerebral space of consciousness and connectivity, where everything is one, and you feel that state of oneness and connectivity. There emes and truth. Shenemar ki melea am deya, v'lakaman itakti. This is how we started. This is what it means to be redeemed from Egypt. And God forbid, if you sit in your Seder this year and say, once upon a time, the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt, and how nice was that as a historical event, so culturally, colorful, then you are an anti-Semite. If you say that, you are anti-Semitic. Because what it means to be a Jew is something much more than this colloquial space of experience of some cultural event. What it means to be a Jew is to stand for a fundamental ability to see in the dark. To see in the dark means that I am able to see oneness, even though it looks like it is absolutely not present. I am able to feel connected, even though every part of me is screaming to be disconnected. I'm able to feel alive, even though I feel dead. Now let's tie this back into our initial sources. We've answered the first source because we said, what is the difference between now and Mashiach? Shibud Malchios. What does it mean to have Shibud Malchios? It means to have servitude to the queenship. We understood that means that that's no longer there. The bucket is not dictating what should fill it, but you are dictating how to fill your own bucket. You don't depend on the coin that you pull out of your pocket to feel a sense of serenity. What does it mean that you won't be thinking anymore? You'll be busy with your work and Mashiach comes. That's what it means to have the element of surprise. We've lost the ability to experience surprise and awe and reverence for every single moment. We're overthinking every single second. We're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Where in fact, the energy of Mashiach is not about waiting. And what do we say? Wait for Mashiach. Be in a state where you want Mashiach. You know how to bring Mashiach? Stop waiting. Start living Mashiach. Start experiencing Mashiach. Start living connected to Hashem and realize there is one entity that exists and everything else is an apparition of separateness. Comes along the Gemara in Sanhedrin to tell us where to find Mashiach. Well, he's at the entrance of Rome. Because Rome is all about being in control. Rome, Edom, Gevalt, it's all about Esav, it's all about doing, it's all about having the control to be able to have the serenity. Having the walls and the army and all of the beautiful wealth and luxury in order to experience a sense of, oh, now I can live. Now I feel like I'm happy. And what is he doing there? He's amongst the sick at that entrance. And the fundamental symbol of Mashiach is that he takes one bandage off at a time. As opposed to taking off everything, he takes life in a space which is so considered, so slow, so present. But the most fundamental part of this source is, when does he say he will come? He says he will come today. What do you mean today? Today? Now? Mashiach coming now? Yes. But it's dependent on one thing. If you hear Mashiach's voice, what's the voice of Mashiach? I mean, if you come to me now and you tell me, you know what, I actually heard Mashiach talking to me, I'd be very scared of you. So what does it mean that Mashiach spoke to you? The voice of Mashiach? The voice of Mashiach is telling you to live Hayoim. To live life now. Wake up. Feel that you have just been born now. That's what it means that you will see and you will experience Mashiach. What we have seen from this exploration is not only the understanding that Mashiach is not an egoic identification of some individual that needs to fall into your structure and what you believe in to be able to experience that redemption. What Mashiach is a fundamental state of mind. What Mashiach is a transformation which you are able to reach right now, not something in the future. And what the Baal Shem Tov was saying is, woe to us if we only realized that when we bring ourselves alive to our experience, what does it mean to bring, what source we didn't clarify? One of the most important sources. Who remembers? I don't have any expectations. Thank you. The name. The name. What do we do with the names of Mashiach? What is this tit for tat, this almost like a childish argument? No, his name's Shiloh. No, his name's Yinun. No, his name's Hanania. No, his name's Menachem. Valdik, We have a cat out here. Look, it's a beautiful cat coming to join the shiur. Thank you for coming to join us. So let's understand what the names of Mashiach. Anyone want to suggest? Those that are at home, we don't want you to fall asleep. Anyone want to suggest what you think these names may potentially represent? Anyone want to take a stab at it? Okay. Anyone here? Yes? There was two. Yes. What do you say?
They represent oneness.
How do they represent oneness? We should just say Mashiach's name is Echad, one. That'd be great. Then we don't have to argue. But they're all saying this is his name, this is his name. It sounds like the same arguments they're having today. When I went to the VNA, he said, no, his name is this. No, it's this. And you better believe in my one, otherwise you're going to hell. They made it physical. Okay, what do you say? Nice. So let's see what, yes, Jacqueline? So what Jacqueline is saying is that everyone has their own particular bias of what Mashiach is. And what we should try and do is create a homogeneous identification of what Mashiach is. Yeah. And one more.
Everyone has a different name for it. Identify within their own personal consciousness and different.
Nice. Excellent. Okay. What we see here is that everyone has their own particular redemption that needs to transpire. Everyone has their own particular blockage that is not there. Some people are way too present in their experience of life and haven't thought about actually tapping into a deeper state of thought and consciousness. They're so swept up by what they're doing that they actually haven't started thinking about anything. Some people think so much that they've forgotten how to actually do anything, how to be present with anything. And what these names represent, and this is in fact what we brought in Lukutei Halachos. I didn't go through the entire thing, but he starts to unpack what a few of these names represent. And there's a source here that I actually didn't bring that goes through the exact details of the names. But I'll share with you a few pointers of what these names are. We're going to skip Shiloi for a moment. But if you look at these names, I want you to listen very carefully. What does the name Yinun sound like? The name Yinun. Does it sound like any letter that we've been speaking about? Nun. Yinun. Nun. The letter Nun is spelled in Yinun. What do we say Yinun was about? What was Nun? Nun was all about Malchus. Nun was all about the queenship. Nun was all about that vessel that is seeking to be filled. So for Yinun or Yanai, it was all about the Nun. Their Mashiach energy was all about filling how to engage with that empty vessel. And if you think about it, one of the biggest questions for us is, what do you do when you're feeling empty? How do you fill that space? For them, their answer, or Mashiach brings the answer to that emptiness. Mashiach comes to address what it means to have a yinun, what it means to have that nun being empty, and how to experience fullness through the emptiness, how to still have that night vision within the darkness, within the loneliness, within the fear. Comes along the next one and he says his name's Chanina. Sure, Chanina? What? How do you spell Chanina? Chanina has the letters Chen in it. Has the letter Ches, Nun, Yud, Nun. Hey, Chanina is a reference to the combination of the concept of Chokhmah and the concept of Nun. Their Mashiach was saying, gosh, all right, I got how to live with the Nun and I got how the Ches lives. Now what do I do? How do I bridge those things together? How do I experience the Chokhmah and the Nukva, or the Chokhmah and that space of Malchus bridge together? How do I live my life with both of those spaces intertwined? How do I live consciously? How do I live with presence? How do I live infusing my consciousness of the oneness in everything that I do, including eating, including sleeping, including conversing? For them, that was their Mashiach. That was what they had to work on. And then you go to Menachem. Menachem has the opposite way around. It's the Nun and then the Ches. Menachem is an entirely different space of Nun than Ches. But what we are seeing, and this is the novelty of this concept, is when you are told and when you are longing for a human being to come, I really think you're living in a fairy tale. And Judaism is not a fairy tale. Judaism is ultimately one of the most real and lived experiences. And if I can tell you that Mashiach is 99% more about the consciousness than this human being that's going to arrive and save humanity, I can't tell you anything more true. Mashiach is in our hands right now. We are living the ikvus the Mashiach. We are living, unbelievable concept. What does it mean, the ikvus the Mashiach? Have you ever heard of that terminology? Ikvus the Mashiach means the heel of Mashiach. What's the ikvus the Mashiach? Why the heel? So there's many Kabbalistic interpretations. Some say that the body of Adam is the body of all souls, and the souls slowly seep out from the bottom and come into existence into all different people. And right at the end of times, once all the souls have been born, then there's a few left, the dregs of that are at the bottom of the heel of Mashiach, the heel of Adam. If you think about it, what it means that we're living in the ikvus the Mashiach, it means that our heels at the same time is one of the most callous places of your body. It is one of the most callous places, especially if you walk a lot of, barefoot around. One of the most callous places. But at the same time, it's one of the most sensitive places. And what we are trying to do is live within that paradox. We're trying to bring life to our heels. We are trying to bring life into the darkness. We are trying to live a state of consciousness that brings us into the moment, that allows us to feel interconnected with the oneness every single moment of our lives, to be aware that there's one creator and a constant time of that experience, to feel that vitality, to feel the understanding that even though it sometimes feels dark and you don't understand, you are able to supersede that feeling with an understanding of deep love and deep connection and deep presence. Any questions? Yes, Lara. I think this is a consciousness that everyone can experience. I think this is a consciousness, we say Mashiach is something that is eudaimomic. It's something that is accessible to all. Well, there's levels of consciousness. And we say when Mashiach comes, some people will be running very far away. Some people won't know what's going on. What's interesting is Mashiach uses one particular sense to discern who is an individual that has reached the state of consciousness. You know what sense Mashiach uses? Uses the sense of smell. Uses the sense of smell. Why? Why the sense of smell out of all senses? What?
Smell
Can evoke a sense of awe. Okay. I'll leave that for you to think about. Yeah. What do you say? Yeah. I think it's to do with breath. Sense of smell, the nose. What is smell? If you think about breath, what is it doing? It's connecting the upper and the lower. It's connecting the ego to the nothingness. If you are able to smell, it says a person that has a spiritual defect has inability to smell. Wonder what that meant during a period of time when one of the greatest afflictions that hit humanity was the inability to smell. But Mashiach is the ability to connect. What it means to be a religious or spiritual and connected human being through the realm of Torah is to be able to have the sight and the consciousness that gives you the connection between your nun and the ches. Gives you the ability to access a space of feeling connected, even when you pull out the wrong rand from your pocket. It doesn't matter because you're not even thinking about it. Because I'm so connected. What the Kabbalists bring down, Shavisi Hashem Lenegdi Samid, it means that I'm living in a state of equanimity, consistency, constant connection. That's what Mashiach is. Now, can we reach that now? We can get glimmers of that. But commensurate to the amount that we work on ourselves to experience it is the amount that we experience Mashiach energy when Mashiach comes. But now's the time to work on it. And fundamentally, I need to state this. The Kabbalists bring down that there's two types of Mashiach. There's something called Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. There's something called Mashiach of Joseph and Mashiach of David. What on earth does that mean? And it says Mashiach of Yosef comes and then is killed in battle. And only then does Mashiach ben David come. No, Mashiach ben Yosef is not a false Messiah. Mashiach ben Yosef is a real Messiah. Yeah? What do you say, Jesse? Yes. Yes. Nice. I like that. Excellent. So Jesse just pointed out that Shiloh is a very, very particular reference to the tabernacle, to the Mishkan, which was the prelude to the temple itself. Now, what does it represent in that prelude? Now, what we have is exactly the prelude that we're talking about. We have an energy called Mashiach ben Yosef, and we have an energy called Mashiach ben David. Now, on the Kabbalistic spheric table, Yosef represents something called Yusoid. Yusoid is your creativity. Yusoid is your emotional vitality. Yusoid is your connectivity and the expression of connectivity. That's what Joseph represents. What David represents is queenship. What David represents is malchus. What David represents is the fruition of one's emotions into the tangible, lived realm. So it seems that Shiloh was focusing on this Mashiach ben Yosef energy. It seems that they were focusing on the emotional space. And what we see in all of our lives, that the prelude to Mashiach ben David starts with working on Mashiach ben Yosef. What it means is you need to work on your emotional self. You need to work on your yesoid, which is your creativity, your expressivity, your connectivity, your ability to feel intimacy in this world. And the ability to feel intimacy in this world is the ability of feeling, gosh, I've just been born. If you've just been born, do you understand how everything looks? You've stopped thinking. A baby's not thinking, it's experiencing, it's connecting. The same too is this energy force of Mashiach ben Yosef. That's one of the first fundamental steps before you come to Mashiach ben David. What Mashiach ben David looks like is another state of consciousness in which it says when Mashiach comes, the bracha that you will recite on everything is Hatoy v'Ametiv. Hatoy v'Ametiv means everything is good. Today, God forbid if a person experiences loss, they say, Baruch Dayan ha'emes. They say, blessed is the true judge. When Mashiach comes, everything will be Hatoy v'Ametiv. That means that you will be able to no longer have a difference between night and day. Everything will be able to see through it and say, this is Hashem. That you might be going through a struggle in your life right now, but you're able to say, I know what Mashiach energy is. I can see through this, and I don't jump into the preclusion that I feel inside of myself, which is a delusion that I'm separate to the world. That is what Mashiach is coming to teach us. So this is the overwhelming space that I want to try to put across and hopefully give everyone an understanding of. And let's see if there's any questions okay, thank you. Any final questions before we conclude? Thank you, my friends. We have two more questions. Yes, Gavin.
Different to mindfulness. Secondly, Mashiach consciousness. I think I have to wait till 2025 on the 25th of February to come to a Shigor here to find out about Mashiach consciousness. Even rabbis be telling this every Friday night from the Bima. How was your Mashiach consciousness during the week? They be asking their congregation that.
Yes, I completely agree with you.
Analogy, I would be more comfortable relating to an old man and his wife, his years, knowledge, and has become a fulfilled individual.
So Gavin's asked, what's the difference between Mashiach consciousness and mindfulness? Why don't rabbis speak about this Mashiach consciousness, and why have you had to wait until now in your life to experience it? And why don't we relate to the analogy of an elder who's developed in so much wisdom as opposed to a baby? So it's interesting to note that you'll see in halacha that it says the Kabbalists, after all of their learning, after all of their wisdom, they reach a state as if they're a tinoik shenoila. They're as if a baby that's born. If you see one of the most famous artists, Picasso, was famous in that he was able to paint like a child, was able to express and have a creativity like a child. Even though he had so much knowledge and so much prowess and so much ability, he was able to convey this raw, creative, childlike energy through an adult. That's what it means to have wisdom. So you're right. We're talking about an elder, but the greatest elder, as Rabbi Nachman taught, Tachlis HaYediyah, the highest state of knowing, Asher lo noida, is to not know. That's the highest state of knowing. So why isn't this spoken about? It's being revealed. Mashiach, it's the ikvus the Mashiach. We need to start understanding this principle. We need to start working on ourselves and sharing this energy with one another and with the world. What your first question was, what's the difference between mindfulness and Mashiach consciousness, is fundamental. because you cannot access this state of consciousness if you do not recognize that this world is all an apparition of infinity, that every separateness that you see is a delusion of the ego. That if you don't have an understanding that everything in this world is one, and that I'm able to penetrate that vision, even though my eyes are seeing separateness, but my heart and my soul is telling me oneness and is able to bring me into the moment experience of life, that's the ultimate fruition of this idea. So mindfulness is a glimmer of what Mashiach consciousness is at its core. Thank you, my friends. I hope you're all filled with bracha, and please God, we should have Mashiach now, as they say.